Cool.
Oh
I'm
boy.
seeing that coming through. Right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome back. Apologies for the rather lengthy delay between the last stream and this stream. A lot of work has gone on under the hood for the code base, none of which is particularly exciting to look at. So I haven't really had anything to show. Special guest joining me this week. Give a warm welcome to Mr. Russell himself, our LF stats god, if you will. Welcome.
Just gonna have a great time. We're excited.
How's it going?
It's all right, you know. We not doing as well as you guys. You guys are down to what, one case now?
Yeah, one active case, so getting things going in the right direction.
That's nice. No, it's good. You know, my wife and I are just talking about our next trip to New Zealand. Well, it'll be a nice vacation, and then we'll just overstay our visa for the next 50 years. So get ready.
I know plenty of people who'd be happy to house you and hide you from the New Zealand government, so I think you're I think you're safe on that.
I I think Jacinda would be very understanding. I think she'd like me a lot. I think we'd get along. I think it would be all right.
Yeah, yeah. Guy next door saying yes, smart. Yeah, we'd happily have you. Although I think you'd have to compete with Scott, aka Morange, for the title of Stats Man at Laserforce Auckland. He's become our resident
Fantastic.
stats man, mostly because it turns out his job is dull enough that he will basically just pour over every single stat from a members night, like while he's at work, just looking for anything, and then he'll just come on a Tuesday night and be like, "Hey, by the way, did you know you did this like crazy random thing that no one thought no one thought of?" We're like, "How did you find that out?" He's like, "Oh, I looked through all the stats."
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah, so he's kind of our man. Speaking of which, and while we just wait for people to jump online, tell me about LF Stats. How did you come about getting all that started and kicked off?
Well, it looked like Fan was having a really hard time with spreadsheets every week and spending like 40 minutes doing stats and hand copying things out of PDFs, and it looked very sad.
Right?
So, you know, that was fundamentally how it started. I mean, it got started because Sean here in Sacramento uh, decided to write a PDF parser that could actually start to pull out that data. And that was like really the tough part, right? Like figuring out how do you actually read a PDF file and pull data out of it. And you know, from there it was spreadsheets, and it was something that was posted online. And I said to myself, well, I could just make a website that does that, you know.
Yeah.
And it you know, grew like a horrifying Frankenstein's monster from there, where it kept adding features, and oh, now we're going to support tournaments and competitive play and doing MVP scoring and all this stuff bolted onto it, where it's at a point now where it functions. It does what I need it to do, but boy, would I like to spend a lot of time sitting down and rewriting all of it. But you know, the motivation is difficult to find these days. Our center is closed. I haven't played tag in 2 months, and before that, I hadn't played in a year. So it gets difficult to stay motivated. But you know, looking at your project here and everything that's coming up, it's starting to get me a little bit more excited again.
Oh, cool.
Trying to think about what's next for the website and how I can kind of get myself back into that groove.
Oh, awesome. Well, hopefully today's update gives you an even bigger kick in the pants because I'm almost tempted to title this the Russ update. So. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, LF Stats has been such an invaluable part of our experience. I can't say that we pour over it necessarily to the same extent that Morange does week by week, but I certainly, at the end of a Tuesday night, I certainly jump on the site and have a look at how badly I've done that night and how terrible my hit diff usually is. Um, but yeah, I mean, so with the recent changes that Brisbane made with the TDFs, I mean, how much of a difference do you think that's going to make for us over the coming couple of years?
Oh, it's massive. It unlocks so much, you know, to go from a point where we had a static set of data that represented the state of a game after 15 minutes to truly having that millisecond by millisecond breakdown of what's happening. I mean, just the resolution of events, the things we're able to tell, the things people are going to come up with as we push forward with it is going to be so exciting. You know, I've talked about how much I want to build the game replay engine so you can sit back and rewatch a game. And then, like you said, as people start to go through their own stats, start to look at what they've done, try and figure out parts of their game that they can try and improve, places where they're failing a little bit. And even as we start to figure out, well, how do we even call some of those things out? Like, resupply doubles is one of the ones I think of right away, where we can start to go through and say, well, all right, red resupply, you guys were more than a second apart on a lot of your resupplies. There was a lot of single resupplying. Just one example where you can start to look through your data and figure out, where do I need to be more in sync? Where do I need to pay more attention?
Mm.
Um, Again, like that's like the first thing that comes to my mind, but I know there's going to be so many more things we think of that are going to be interesting, and so many things I'm going to have Rusty beating down my door saying, do this, do this, do this. Stat whore that he is.
Yeah, we've got to find a way to so he can drop 7 nukes in a single game.
That's exactly what it is. How can you engineer his game? Where are those special points coming from?
Yeah. No. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, right. Well, speaking of which, I suppose it's probably a good segue into what I want to show off today. And it looks like we've got a decent few people watching us at the moment, so I'll without further ado, jump it straight in. Let's hope it's going to compile for me. It is. Cool. Right, let me pull that out of the way so we don't spoil the surprise too much. Now, straight off the bat, what you're going to notice is there's no game running, which is very different to my previous streams, and there's a very good reason for that. The reason for that is there's currently no game literally running. So a little bit of quick background and maybe a bit of explanation as to why it's taken me 3-4 weeks to get the stream back up. Previously, I was running on the assumption that I'd always be processing live games. So when you said game has started, the 15-minute clock would simply run. It wasn't actually tied to the game events, and all the timers were based on triggers. So for example, if you just put the commander down, I simply create a 6.5 second timer. And yes, I found out that the downtime is actually 6.5 seconds, not 7 like we all think it is. I'd simply create a 6.5 second timer, and that bar showing when the commander was going to respawn was simply based on that timer. I realized after the last stream that I was running myself into a bit of a problem where I'd only ever be able to parse live games, and I'd never be able to deal with, like we've discussed, the concept of replaying games. So what I've basically done over the last 3 weeks is rebuilt the entire game engine so that instead of working in real time, it now works in what I call game time, if you will. So we've got this concept of a 15-minute game, and I know exactly at which point we're in the game. So because there's no game loaded at the moment, nothing's ticking along. So let me just sneak the commentator's console back in over the top, and let's see if there's some buttons that get you excited, Russ.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, here we go. You've done it.
I've built the replay engine. So let's go ahead and let's grab ourselves.
Fantastic.
Let's grab ourselves a TDF to take a look at, and you'll see it loading in there in the background. I'll try and put this somewhere a little out of the way for now. We'll look at the stats later. I'll just leave the replay engine up there. And if I grab the slider bar, I can just navigate my way through the game, and I can go backwards, and I can go right to the end of the game. And if you wanted slightly finer going control, I could say go back 1 second at a time, or I could go back 10 seconds at a time. I can go forward a second at a time. And let's say we wanted to start the game at, I don't know, 12.5 minutes in, or 12.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes in. And go from here, and we'll just hit play. And
that's phenomenal.
I should note that the combat and the resupply haven't been done yet, but everything else has. The combat and the resupply will catch up. There's still a bit more work to be done. But yeah, so that'll take along, and you're like, hang on, I just want to stop at this point in the game, and the game is paused. And you're, I want to.
I'm just immediately impressed about how smoothly that moves through time there. I mean, that's difficult to do, to have the game state be able to update itself and go through to arbitrary moments in time like that. And is it live updating as you're dragging that thing too?
Yep, it certainly is.
Oh, fancy. Fancy.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the big things I had to do, and I apologize, I'm probably going to geek out for a bit here, people on the stream who aren't developers, but I had to detach all of the timer-based triggers from the game engine so that essentially what you can do is you can ask the replay engine, please load me the game state up to the millisecond mark, and it will process all of the events that have happened as fast as it can. And I think near the end, where it's got like 600, 700 events to go, there's a little bit of lag, but it takes about 400 milliseconds to process a full game's worth of events, and then the UI events load on top of that. So I can basically, on each time, it's literally rerunning the whole game from the start to that point in time, to be able to read the game state. And I'm surprised it worked that fast, but yeah, it's a few optimizations there.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, as I've been thinking about what does a web parser look like, that's been one of the big thoughts on my mind is how does performance for this work? You know, JavaScript on a website is a little bit more limited, but this works so nicely.
Yep.
My goodness.
We can go ahead and pick a different TDF file if we like, and yeah, you could just play it from the start. I haven't got to the point where the trackbar resets itself yet, but that's okay. And just run that one through from the start, and everything ticks away the way it should.
There we go.
Drag it all the way through.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So yeah, so
that's looking so nice too. I mean, just all the graphics look great. Really lovely.
Yeah. So this whole area needs a little bit of tidy up. Obviously, you won't be able to do this in real time for a game. I suppose, think about it. Would we want to sort of TiVo style real games? Probably not. You probably want to look at a game in real time, wouldn't you, if you were commentating on it?
Yeah, you know, we don't have any natural breaks in the action where you could go back and look at a replay during the game.
Yeah.
It would definitely be something you'd have to go back afterwards. You know, it would be sort of interesting if you could set bookmarks in the file of some type, right? Where you set, you know, you see something interesting happen, like you know, Commander doesn't drop a nuke when he should, or something like that, so that the commentators could go back afterwards. You know, they've got their bookmarks set already, at what timestamps they want. I mean, they could just write it down with a pen too, I guess, but that's less fun.
Oh, that's old school. I mean, the thing I've thought about, and we'll probably go into the pipeline further down the stream, is I'd love to have some sort of event timeline that you can have under the track bar. So you've got things like when nuke drops happened, when player elims happened, maybe when boosts went off, that kind of stuff, so that you can more easily scroll to, say, specific points in time that you're looking for. But yeah, certainly the ability to add bookmarks to certain points in time as points of interest would be quite cool. Go next door's question. Mainly for commentators to go to key points in the game. After the game is finished, yes. Although this functionality is less geared towards NATs and more geared towards just general game analysis. So this is kind of me taking a step back and looking at the software package as more of a well-rounded product rather than necessarily just working for NAT. So this would be probably in tandem with like the LF stat stuff that we have online. And of course, Russ, if you wanted to use this engine as a back end and just wrap an HTML JavaScript front end on it, then you wouldn't have to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I guess it's time to learn ASP.NET. All right.
Is it revolving prior actions?
So yeah, like you said, at this point, you know, this goes away from being something that, you know, needs an LFPC and a running game to get value out of, to now, I mean, this is something that, would you potentially put it up for download somewhere and let people run it on their home machines?
Yeah.
And go back and download games, and boy, I better make sure there's a download TDF button somewhere on LF-Stats.
There isn't.
No, I don't think there is right now.
I looked. I couldn't find one. Because yeah, I'd love to run some other sites' games through this engine just to see how it reacts. Like, I know Brisbane have produced some TDFs. I don't know if any of the American sites have started doing it yet.
I think Syracuse has a couple.
Yeah.
I think Loveland has some now too, actually. Yes, Loveland has some. So Loveland, Syracuse, Brisbane, Auckland all should have some on LF-Stats.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if you can make a download TDF button, then I can go and grab some of those. And
well, I'll add that tonight for sure. That'll take not 10 seconds, but, you know,
11 seconds.
I have to remember what the code looks like.
Yeah, it's always that problem. Go next door. Is it resolving all the... No, no, the combat and the resupply hasn't been done yet. I literally finished tidying up this functionality yesterday afternoon. And most of that was around the scoreboard and the stats. So I'll do the combat and the resupply at some point in time. Just hasn't quite been done yet. So the other part to the update, which I'll drag the rest of the commentators' console down for, is that the stats section has been somewhat revamped, but we've added some new stats in there as well. So enemy stats, enemy hits, which we're looking at the moment, is one of the new one. I don't know if I showed this on stream last time, but we can now switch between the top 5 players and the bottom 5 players. And now we've grossly expanded the list of stats that are available. So we've got the number of abilities that have been used by each player.
Oh, that's great.
The accuracy of each player, the number of enemies you've hit, the number of your own team you've hit, your hit diff, which, Russ, I think that was a suggestion from you after last stream, was to put the live hit diff in. So I had a question. I was going to ask you this privately, but I'll do it on stream for why not. The hit diff calculation, what do you do when the player hasn't been hit yet? Like, if you've hit 4 other players and haven't been hit, how do you resolve divide by 0?
Yeah, you divide by 1 instead.
Gotcha. Okay. I figured it was something like that. So yeah, that's what I've done. I looked at it and I'm like, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and it was. I remember the first time it happened, the website blew up, which is what always happens.
Yeah. Good on divide by 0.
But I love this, though, the opportunity to sort of change what's on screen there. You know, whenever you watch actual esports streams and things like that, they've always got different overlays and different stats they can show. So, I think that's really fantastic and can be awesome to watch.
Medic hit's always a hotly contested stat. Melted gun, of course, if you're looking for that trophy, you usually expect the ammos to top both of those positions. The
Cheaters.
Yeah. The hotly contested MVP stats. For those who are participating in the Fantasy League, I suspect that's going to be a very requested stat screen to display.
Live MVP. God, I love it. It just entertains me every time I think about it.
And a new addition, and thanks to Simon for the suggestion on this one, but sort of a very different format for the stats box, is player hits. So you can see for an individual player who they've hit and who they've hit by. So Joe Light has obviously hit me a lot of times. Holy heck, he hit me 10 and I've hit him 2. I'm going to pretend I wasn't planning to play Commander at Nats this year, looking at those stats, because that is shocking. And so, yeah. So bringing up the player hits, you can now select a player of your choice, and you can look at their stats. So let's look at how terribly I'm doing. Ooh.
Not great. Not ideal.
I've hit Steve 4 times and been hit by him 15. Steve, you need to just calm down when you play the game, man. Right? It's okay if the enemy commander hit your medic once or twice.
I mean, that's fantastic too. As you can start to look at how opposing commanders are going throughout a game and bring this up to see, well, is someone farming the scouts? Is someone actually getting in and getting those medic hits? Where are they coming from? I mean, again, just enhancing the ability to commentate is so cool.
Yeah, and I mean, if you select the enemy who's lost, Phil's been killed out, so let's pick him. You can see, right, so Joe did 5 of the medic hits, G did 1 of them, and I'm going to guess the other bunch of lives probably nuke drops or missiles. But yeah, so that's quite cool. The other addition, which isn't in yet, and I'll just change it back to one of the list-based ones, is you'll see they're blanked out at the moment, but you can switch between the current game stats, the tournament stats, and the LF stats.
Ooh.
So there'll be a database sitting in behind while the tournament is running. So for something like medic hits, that might be quite interesting, or for MVP, you can have a look at that across the whole tournament. Or you can compare a player by their LF stats. I know a couple of years ago when I first had a go at making a members night program, you had an API available for me where I could pull some of the stats down directly from the site. I'm not sure if that still exists. Probably
There
not.
is, and there's a better one. In
Okay.
fact, there's a GraphQL API that
Right.
exists that someday a new website will be built on. But for the moment, God, is it api.lfstats.com? It might be
Oh,
that
okay.
simple. I can't remember.
Right.
I'll let you know.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's a down the track kind of thing, but I think it'd be quite nice to, like, say you were looking at accuracy. You might want to. I'll create a different stats box for this, but essentially you might want to look at how a player is doing in the current game versus how they're doing in the tournament versus how they
Yeah.
normally play at home, and you may find that like a player is normally way more accurate at home versus how they are in the tournament, or maybe they're being more conservative with it. I don't know, but I think this would be quite a fascinating thing for the commentators to just have a look at, either between
Yeah.
games or when there's a bit of a lull in the game, just to kind of
Absolutely. And again, it all goes back to the kinds of things you see in esports and
yeah,
sports and even sport broadcasts, right? When you start comparing how someone's doing in a game to what's their season point total, all that sort of thing, which is just so much fun to look at and so much fun to shout about and argue about and mock people about. And that's really what it all comes down to at the end of the day is how can you embarrass someone based on their poor stats, which is honestly the goal of the whole thing.
yeah. I'll flick this one up, and I'll just run a game live. I just think it'd be interesting to, let's try and pick a decent game. Let's take this one and just sort of watch it tick by. And if you want me to change the stats out, just let me know. Way, we crashed the game. Take two.
And then a suggestion from chat too about, is there an option just putting on kind of a rotation too as those stats go along, just so a different thing pops up every so often if the commentators don't remember to set it, or if it's just something that you leave running without commentators too. It's a great idea.
I should probably catch up on chat because I've missed a lot of that stuff. Yeah. Guten Abend, Deutschland. Nice to have you guys join us. I know it's really early in the morning. It's like 1 a.m. in Germany when I did the time zone changes.
Late at night, early in the morning, one or the other.
Yeah. 6 and 1/2 dozen. Yeah, I like the idea of a rotating scoreboard. Maybe I'll put an option in there for that to be something you can just turn on. Just need player trackers. What do you mean player trackers for full game replays? I'll wait for the stream lag to catch up.
Yeah, you gotta catch up now.
AI, I think between now and next week I need to spend some time on the AI, because that's one of the things that's bugging me the most at the moment.
In what terms?
Well, the predictor bar at the top is only training on, I think, 30 or so scoreboards, some of which are really obvious ones. Like the start of the game, there's obviously 50%. A game where one team has been completely eliminated is either 0% or 100%, depending on the color of the team. But yeah, it needs a ton of data to build up the neural network to be able to actually understand what the game state looks like. And at the moment, some very wild things happen. I've seen teams almost have their medics die out, and the AI is like, "Yep, they're about to win." I'm like, "No." The GPS tracker. Yeah, that's Simon. That's a long way down the road at this stage, but yeah.
Oh, GPS tracker. Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot cheaper GPS sensors and transmitters, and
I should clarify before Fan jumps in that GPS requires line of sight to the sky. It's not actual GPS, it's more a 3D space tracker. It's similar technology to what motion capture studios basically use. It's a combination of there and where new VR tech is going at the moment. But yeah.
Gen 9, let's go.
Yeah, make it happen, Brisbane. just do it for me. I just real time suit tracking would be fantastic.
Yeah, come on, easy. Just throw a chip in. It's fine.
Actually, it wouldn't. I don't think it would be that difficult. They wouldn't have any value to pull out of it. I have thought about trying to make external modifications to the suit, but that presents a few problems. The first being I'd need massive permission, presumably from both the owners of Laserforce Auckland, but also probably Brisbane themselves. And then you've got all the kids who play with the suits when we're not having members night, who would likely smash them and pull them off and do all the other kid type activities.
Yeah, I can imagine adding anything to the suits would be a bit of a warranty issue, a support issue.
Yeah, very likely. So yeah. Brisbane,
you can see Sanch getting real mad about that real fast.
Cup holder. Why would you need cup holders in your suit? I don't know if you're talking about like carrying water or power drink or like alcohol. Both of them are concerning.
Oh god. I just love watching these. It's just so cool. It's just such a great scoreboard.
Thanks. Switch to let's see how terribly I'm doing. Yeah, I've been hit 4 times and only hit 1 person. That's not great. Let's see how our
ammo though, early game ammo, that's not bad.
Yeah, but if I compare that to our medic, yeah,
that's not ideal.
Yeah.
It's a little early to be down 4 lives.
Yeah, this is Auckland A against Auckland B, so yeah, we were. And oh no, this our commander had joined us. So the plan had originally been for myself and Mr. Doom to rotate commander and ammo positions depending on which colour team we were playing. I'm giving away all our team secrets.
Yeah, just laying it all out there.
Everyone would have figured out pretty quickly. Yeah, turns out, it's really no secret that the downstairs area in Auckland is very hard to defend from, and we are expecting red team to win somewhere between 60 and 80% of the games. And it's a discussion that's happened a couple of times. The person who wins Nats at Auckland is going to be the people who play green team best. And it's really no secret whatsoever. So yeah, we've been.
Because I'm trying to remember, does green start like on the disco ball side?
Yeah, well, green start right as you enter the maze. It's more red come up right in the middle of the upstairs portion where green kind of have to split their attack, and one goes up green ramp and one goes up long ramp. And if your heavy is on it, and Steve is always on it, you can easily put the commander down and have your resubs take care of the other side for you, and then upstairs really isn't contested. And in fact, if green team contest too hard for upstairs, that's either when you lose your ammo or you end up flushing back to disco and everyone is screaming because your medic's lost like 6 lives, your ammo's nearly dead, the heavy's got no ammo left. And if the red commander comes out, it's kind of GG. So
I just remember my first game in that arena playing red, and Steve was playing green heavy, and crawling through the tunnels to shoot him in the back a few times, and the look of disappointment on his face when he turned around and looked at me, I will just never forget.
Yeah, I can picture the look on his face that we would. Yeah.
No tunnels, Russ. All right.
So yeah, Simon, we tossed around the idea of the sheet, but we kind of think it's going to disadvantage Auckland, who get the most practice in that maze. And let's be honest, if we're going to host, we're going to give our teams as much advantage as possible. Because that's our rights as the host. And come on, someone's got to be Brisbane. Although, Detroit are running tramps, right? Not counting coronavirus. So someone's got to beat one of those 2 teams.
I guess they are. Technically.
They did win the last actual Nats.
I guess. I have feelings about that, but that's all right. But you guys are getting ready to play again, right? I was listening to the podcast the other day, and it sounds like you guys may actually get back in the arena here pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, yesterday, so Friday New Zealand time at midday, they've relaxed our social gathering size to now 100 people, which is now more than enough for Laserforce. It was previously 10, which posed some problems. And of course, Laserforce Auckland hadn't actually announced that they were opening. I think they opened earlier this week. And then, yeah, Steve kind of put the call out on Facebook and said, hey, who's kind of ready to jump back in the maze? I think we got to the 10 sort of bare minimum we need for Space 5. And yeah, we're keen to jump back. So it's been a very long, 2.5 months, 3 months since the last time we played.
Well, and hopefully the business bounces back fine and everything's all right with them. Certainly a struggle for everybody who owns a site right now.
Yeah, it's been tough, but yeah, we're keen to jump back and support them kind of as best we can. Hopefully the numbers will pick back up for them. I'm sure people will be keen to dump their kids somewhere, having done 8 to 10 weeks of homeschooling and extended babysitting and stuff. So hopefully they can just appeal to them.
Absolutely. You saw mine wander in earlier, and yeah, God, we need to get him out of the house.
Yeah, so I hope it'll be all right, but it'll be good to catch up with them at least. We get along with the owners really well. They're really lovely people, so it'll be cool just to catch up with them and see how they've been going and where they kind of stand. Whoa, we tried to set something to 1,006. That's really cool. What did we set to 1,000? I'm just curious. Oh, the
something got a little too high.
The game went longer than it thought it should have. Interesting. Okay, we're finding issues. This is real time development. This is what it looks like. So.
It's interesting looking at some of the timing in some of the game files where we get that millisecond resolution, but it doesn't always end at right exactly when you think it should, and when it resolves some of the player scores not quite at the end of games. A little bit of, as you'll see as I dump more data at you, there's a little bit of weird error handling that has to go on.
Right.
But manageable.
Yeah. Check on chat. Yes, you did hear podcast, Steve. Shout out to the podcast who will be joining us on Twitch. Hopefully by the end of the month in a live format. So that'll be cool.
Is it still a podcast at that point? What do we call it then?
I think it's still technically a podcast. I don't know. It's got a pretty broad definition. It's a semi-live chat show.
I have a lot of questions. That's all. We'll see. Oh, pimping his Twitch link in the chat there.
Dropping the links in the chat. Steve. But yeah, so
smash that like and subscribe button.
Yeah. No, but it was cool to see the resupply get back up and running. I was seriously Laserforce geeking out last night. I had it playing on one screen while I was coding this on the other screen. So yeah. About the geekiest Laserforce play you can probably find.
Beautiful. No, I love it because it ends up in something like this, which is just such a step forward, and just so cool. Have you had a chance to show this to any of the Laserforce International guys, like Scorpion over there?
No, I'm pretty new to the whole international community. So probably some introductions need to be made. Does Scorpion? Scorpion has a real name, I presume.
Yeah, Chris, and I'm blanking on his last name.
Oh, okay. As in the guys who work at HQ, or?
Yeah. He's I believe the primary developer.
Oh,
and,
okay.
The guy who pushed out the TDF definition files to me in the first place.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so he's the one of I think 2 or 3 guys they have who do a lot of development on the actual Laserforce software.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if Rusty has made him watch any of these videos yet, or if he's seen them lately. But I'm sure he'd be really interested to see what you've managed to put together here, because it is pretty phenomenal.
Thanks.
I'm gonna send him an email.
I mostly liaise with Paul McGugan. He's the one who I'm incredibly thankful to him for kind of keeping me in part of the loop, because I know I'm not an official Laserforce site or anything, but he emailed me a couple of weeks ago basically just say, hey, heads up, I've made some changes to the TDF format that you probably want to know about. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, thank you so much for letting me know, because then I don't have to wait for Auckland to...
You didn't email me? Where's my email, Paul?
Sorry, Paul, I'll drop you in it now. But yeah, because I was liaising with him when I first started writing the original telemetry software for
Mhm.
NATs back when we only had that event data output. And of course, the biggest problem I faced was I didn't know when people missed, which doesn't let me do shots or most of the
Right.
stats like accuracy. And then, I think you let me know that the TDF format was on its way, and I think you sent me like an example copy of the file, and I just about wet myself as I read through it. And then, yeah, he's been kind of my chief liaison from that point of. I know he watched the first stream I put out, so I think he's
Oh,
seen
cool.
it. And he told me in his last email he's kind of bookmarked the other videos on YouTube that I've put up to go back and watch. I don't know if he's had a chance to see them yet.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to liaise with any of the HQ guys and anyone.
Yeah, I mean it's Chris and Paul are the guys, right? I mean it's the between the two of them,
Right.
and then Chris even put LF-stats.com in the Laserforce manual
Yeah,
now
that was
when they
cool.
pushed out the latest update. So
That was pretty
it's
cool.
exciting for me.
You're getting official recognition there.
Exactly, exactly. I put my email address in and everything.
So is there anything else you wanted to see, have a look at, make a comment on?
It's beautiful. I wish we
Thanks.
had a tournament coming up.
You, me, and probably 60, 70 other people.
I mean, the hype would be out of control right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um,
But hopefully you guys do get to do some kind of event and actually use this, and then I'll be staying up all night watching games, and it'll be fantastic.
yeah, or you could just grab the TDFs and use the replay engine to rewatch them at your leisure. You could watch them at. I need to put like a fast forward button in so you can watch it at an increased time speed. Hang on.
Oh yeah,
Making notes.
2x, 4x button.
I need to add to my notes. A lot of things to change.
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah. And I do want to say thanks to everyone who's given me suggestions so far. Steve, guy next door, has given me lots of feedback. Matt, God's servant, has always given me lots of feedback. You've given me lots of feedback on the stats. Simon has been good. So yeah, I mean, please keep the suggestions, comments, feedback flooding in, because I want to build this for the community. So the more you guys tell me what you want it to do and not do, the more I'm happy to mold it in that direction. There are some technical limitations here and there. But yeah, I'm always more than happy to add stuff to the backlog. I mean, with this replay engine, do you think it's something is this how you envisaged it looking when you talked about it? Or is it sort
Oh
of
yeah, I mean absolutely right. A slider, a pause, play control, the skip aheads, absolutely right. I mean this is I was thinking of it from a web front end standpoint, JavaScript BS garbage. But now I'm very curious about can we take the C# backend and load that onto a website and do it that way too, because that would be really really interesting, and then also less work for me, and I am fundamentally lazy. Let's
most
be
developers
clear.
are? Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty well detached from the UI. The game engine layer
Hmm.
is convenes pretty well to most standard MVC practices, so it shouldn't be too hard to just create like an isolated DLL if you wanted to
Yeah.
just reuse that
Oh, I
um,
bet we can figure it out. I
for
bet we can. And then yeah, I'm gonna add some TDF download buttons.
yeah, please do. Um,
Give you access to the S3 bucket where they all sit.
yeah, that's a good point actually, because one of the things I'd like to do in the coming couple of weeks is possibly look at getting a live commentary stream going. I'd love to grab Morange and Wolfman if they're both available and keen. And I'd love to run a TDF through of a particularly interesting game. So you guys have pretty much seen all of the Auckland games that I have at the moment because they're obviously the test bed. But any of the guys from Brisbane, if you know that you've had like a particularly interesting game, or was it Syracuse? Did you say was the other one, Russ? Or
Yeah, Syracuse has a few, not many yet, and I
okay,
think just social nights. We didn't have it. They didn't have it online for the East Coast tournament
right.
quite yet when we played it.
Okay.
But Brisbane had already started their newest season, and they were using it. So I imagine they've got to have a couple fun ones in there.
Yeah. So if anyone from Syracuse or Brisbane knows a particularly like interesting game that would be quite good for Morange and Wolfman potentially to do a live commentary on, then I think it'd be quite cool just to see how this goes in the hands of people who are better at talking to a camera than probably I am.
And I think the TDF might already be exposed in the LF-Stats API, so you might be able to already pull it down from the API. I have to go check on that, but
Right.
I'll send you an email here pretty quick that has some of those details.
Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. I think that's pretty much all I had to show for this week. Twitch chat. Anyone's got any further questions, comments, anything you want to see? If anyone missed anything?
Fake crowd noise, I think, is absolutely in the cards. Get smarter, GND. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Oh, we love acronyms.
It's the way it is, dude.
Yeah.
Deal.
Fake
All
crowd noise.
right. Well, thanks so much for inviting me and having me on this. This was really exciting to see and great fun. And honestly, I think I said at the start of this, I've been feeling a lack of motivation about the website, but just seeing this is absolutely motivating and gets me excited all over again.
Oh, awesome.
And maybe someday I'll even get to play laser tag again. Won't that be a fun, exciting day?
Yeah. Well, we'll get you out to New Zealand. We'll fix that problem.
I can't wait to overstay my visa. I'm dead serious, not a joke.
Yeah, just got to remember that it's autumn, not fall, and it's aluminium, not aluminum.
We can handle it. We can do it. We're ready.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Thanks for joining me, Russ. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
I'll leave you free to enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, if anyone has any comments, feedback, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or wherever else you'd like to find me. And this should go up on YouTube hopefully later today.
All right.
All
See you later,
catch
Twitch
you
chat.
guys all later. See you.